So my name is Shawn Griffin, and I'm interviewing Nolan Hubbard for Georgia State University's Women's March Oral History Project. The date is April 2, 2017, and the interview is taking place in the archives at Georgia State University. While we're talking, I probably won't say very much. I won't make any affirming noises and everything, because if it interrupts you, it makes it harder if somebody wants to use a clip of you talking, if I'm interrupting with an uh-huh or a yes or other supportive comments. So mostly I'll probably just look at you and nod my head. And if I'm looking down, it doesn't mean that I'm not listening to you. It's probably just because I'm making a note or checking for my next question. So Nolan, what year were you born and where were you born?
I was born in 1998, and I was born in Atlanta.
And did you grow up in a family that was politically active?
Moderately so, yeah, I would say. I mean, like, I've always been encouraged to vote and do my part and make my voice heard, because that's, like, important. But, yeah, I mean, no, like, crazy activism, but, yeah, definitely politically active. Like, everyone votes, everyone's encouraged to have their say, and we have debates and talk about current issues, definitely.
Can you describe your family's political leanings?
Pretty moderate left. I'd say moderate Democrat would be pretty much my family's leaning.
And what are you up to currently? I understand you're a student.
Yes, I am currently a student at Georgia Tech. I am majoring in biology. Yep.
And do you support a political party?
Yeah, generally I generally tend to lean Democrat. But, I mean, if there is, I prefer more party, not party, but platform. So usually I agree with the Democratic platform a lot more, so I typically vote Democrat. But say if it was a local election, I would have to look at the candidates and determine what I think would be best for the area and the people in the area.
Do you mind revealing how you voted in the primary and in the general election, the presidential election?
Yeah. I failed to register to vote in time for the primary, which was really disappointing. I was really disappointed about that. But I voted for Hillary Clinton in the general election.
So had you been involved in political activity in the past before the march?
I mean, not organized, not really. No, haven't really attended any marches or sit-ins, anything like that. I mean, like, I've stayed up to date on the news, but other than that, not really.
So what motivated you to march on January 21?
I think that our current political situation, it's very divisive, and there's a lot of people saying things that are cruel and having messages that are intended to hurt people rather than help the country. So I feel that it's your responsibility as a citizen to stand up against that. And
you went to D.C., I understand.
Yes.
So tell me a little bit about how that happened.
And
why you chose to attend the D.C. march.
I chose to attend the D.C. march because, I understand that, like, it's important to have people in multiple cities because it shows universal support as opposed to just in one place. But I don't know. It just seemed like I have the ability to go to D.C. I'm young. I don't really have a lot of responsibilities so I can drop my life for like a day or two and go do something. And so that's why I chose to go to D.C.
And what kind of planning did you do for the trip?
Oh, absolutely none. So it was about 4:00, and on Friday, me and some friends were hanging out on the Georgia Tech green, throwing a frisbee. And I'd been kind of thinking about, like, what if I just went to D.C. today? And then I voiced my opinion. I was like, hey, does anyone want to go? Like, I'll go home and get my car, and we can go to D.C. like right now. Like, who wants to go? And so obviously it was super last minute, and so my friends were like, I don't know if it's kind of hard to get people to drop everything at once and go do something. But then I called Kiki, my friend, who was also interviewed, and then she said yes. And so I went home and picked up my car and drove to Washington, D.C., and stayed with my cousin there.
So did you drive overnight?
Yes.
And then went straight to the march?
Yes, I did not sleep for like 32 hours. Yeah. So I had gone to class on Friday, got up, hung out with my friends, then drove home, picked up my car, and drove all the way to D.C. Yeah.
But you had a place to stay.
Yes.
Which was pretty key.
Yes.
And a place to park.
Yes. Which was a lifesaver. Yeah.
So going, tell me a little bit more about what you talked about, why you went, but what issue was most important to you, if any? Was there a particular issue for you at the march?
I don't know if there's a specific issue. I think, I honestly don't think I was going for a specific issue. I was more going just because it's my civic responsibility to show that I'm displeased with the current situation of our administration.
Did you see any issues represented at the march through signs or chants or conversations with people that were things that you hadn't thought about or that were new to you?
Not much new, but I saw a lot of support against the pipeline, and so I wasn't expecting to see a lot of opposition to, like, didn't expect to see a lot of people out there for that cause at the march. But I mean, I'm glad that there were, but it was surprising. I didn't expect that much of a turnout for that particular issue.
What were you hoping to get out of the experience before you went?
I don't know. I feel like I didn't do enough this election cycle, and I feel like I should have done more to help have changed the current political situation in the country. And so I feel like it was important to do something, like, to try and make up for I just didn't do enough. So I feel like I was trying to maybe make up for what I didn't do originally.
How did you feel after?
I felt really good. It was really interesting. I didn't see. I felt good about what was done and what was said. There wasn't much. It was very peaceful, very orderly. I mean, there's obviously a few planning issues because it's hard to plan an event of that size. So when you get however many people, anywhere from obviously 100,000 to a million, I've heard numbers. But yeah, if that makes sense.
It does. Tell me about the group that you marched with. You said you had a cousin and you took your friend here who goes to Emory.
Yeah, so, I mean, they're pretty much just normal. They're older than me. She's older than me. I mean, like, they all have, like, I don't know how to describe them. They're like 20-somethings in DC. Mm-hmm. That's I guess that's their demographic group.
Are they involved in government work?
Yes.
Politics?
Yeah. Not government work, but my cousin, I'm not exactly sure what she is. It's some sort of, like, it's not a government position, but it's like a contracted through the government position.
How did you manage to stay together?
A lot of hand-holding and sign. Well, we had one friend who was, not one friend, one of my cousin's friends was super tall, so we could see him. And it was a lot of, like, holding onto each other, but it wasn't really hard because there wasn't like a ton of pushing and running and people being separated, so it was pretty easy to stay together, I found.
Had you ever been in a crowd that size?
Not that size. I mean, I've been that close to people because I've been to, like, concerts and music festivals and everything. But no, it was a new experience. It was a totally new experience to be with that many people at one time.
Did that surprise you?
Yeah, it was really surprising. I think the craziest thing was when you look down the side streets. So, like, there's the main march route, and it was totally packed. But then when you looked down the side streets and up hills and everything, like, that was totally packed. So you could just see just tons of people streaming into the onto the main march route, which was really interesting.
So, what were you hoping to get out of the experience?
It's kind of hard to say. Like, I don't know if I was trying to get anything out of it. I think I was more just trying to voice my opinion and show that I agree with, agree. It's kind of hard to phrase. I don't know. It wasn't necessarily I was trying to get a specific thing. It was more that I was trying to do my part to help out.
That makes sense. And did you feel like you did that?
I do. I feel like it was important to go. I feel like every person who was there, like, if that's what they were there for, I guess. I don't know. Can you repeat the question again? Sorry.
I'm not sure I can remember where I was. I think I was asking you if you felt like.
Oh yeah, if I felt like
if you felt like you'd achieved your purpose.
Yeah, I
in going.
think so. I believe so. I believe like everyone, like every additional person that was there, fulfilled the purpose of showing their support.
It mattered to be.
Yeah,
there.
it mattered to.
And it felt
to
that way
yeah,
to
yeah.
you at the
Yeah,
end.
that's exactly what I was trying.
It was interesting. This is just more conversational than me asking you a question. But one of the things that I thought was really interesting, I don't know if you could hear the speakers. I want to talk to you about that in a minute. But I think Gloria Steinem, who you probably know her name, was one of the leaders of the feminist movement for starting in the 70s. She said something that I thought was really powerful, and I think she's the only one who acknowledged this, that each person who showed up was bringing their physical body to that place.
Yeah.
And risking themselves and spending their time and energy to be there. And I think maybe that's part of what you're going.
Yeah, that's it's kind of hard to. That's a really good way to put it. It's really hard to. It's kind of hard to phrase that.
Showing up.
Yeah, it's important to show up.
And showing up is hard.
Yes, showing up is always very hard.
How long was the drive?
A little bit over 10 hours. It's very foggy and rainy.
So not easy.
No, not easy, but also not a terrible inconvenience. Like 10 hours in the course of your life, like we're gonna waste 10 hours like, staring at a wall and twiddling our thumbs eventually. So like you might as well take 10 hours and put it towards something important.
So were your family and friends supportive?
Totally, all of them were. Yeah, all of them were.
So
even my family. So some of my like my grandmother, she leans more towards the political right. Like she definitely votes Republican a lot, and I have a lot of family in like rural Alabama as well, and so I didn't tell them about it. But more like my grandmother and my uncle. Like I have a few uncles who lean more on the conservative side, and they didn't like say what I was doing was wrong. They just wanted to know that I was okay when I was done, and so I didn't really like. I feel that they understand that like everyone has their own political opinion and everyone has their right to express it. So yeah, I had a very supportive family. A lot of my friends did not.
Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, not necessarily for the march, but just over the whole course of the election cycle. A lot of my friends clashed with their parents over political beliefs and who they should vote for and what the correct course of action for the future of America is.
Did anybody question why you, as a man, were going to the Women's March?
No, not while I was there. I feel like everyone there was a lot of guys there, which I was glad about. No, I wondered about it myself. I wondered like, is it okay for me to go to this because I'm a guy and this is the Women's March? But ultimately, I decided who cares what they think as long as I'm there and showing my support, then that's what's important.
That's great. I went with my son, who's your age, and he said, absolutely, I want to go. And I also went with my 8-year-old twin goddaughters. And they said, why is he going? He's not a girl. So it was a great teaching moment because we talked about how, I said, well, do you think he agrees with what Donald Trump is saying? They're like, no. And he says, well, if a man shows up showing that he disagrees with Donald Trump, she said, oh, I get it now. That's why he's there. And so it was and there were a lot of men there. That surprised me, actually.
Yeah, it surprised me too.
It was also really nice because it was obviously men who were a lot of times very connected to the women that they were with.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that contributed to that feeling of peacefulness and supportiveness for the whole day. Did you witness any negative events or counter protests?
There's one very small counter. I'm not sure which. It was very small. There's like 10 people, and they were like marching the opposite direction, and they had like flags, and I forget what it was. Some sort of propaganda. It was. I forget exactly what it was, but yeah, that was really the only thing that I saw, and like, yeah. So I didn't really see much. Anything other than the main march that was going on.
Did you go thinking that it was going to be that way? Peaceful or not peaceful?
I wasn't entirely sure. I mean, I knew that I wanted to be involved in a peaceful process, and if it got unpeaceful, I would have left because that's not what I believe in. But I expected it to be peaceful for the most part. I expected people to realize like this is more important than like getting in a fight with someone.
Did you have any interaction with law enforcement while you were there?
Said hi. They said hi. There's a lot, but no, not really.
Did you carry a sign?
I did not. I did not have time to make a sign, but I wish I did. But ultimately, it was just so last minute that I was barely on time as it is. So.
Did you do any chanting?
Oh, yeah. I mean, everyone did.
Or did you have any favorites? Or remember any that you want to talk about?
No. I mean, there's all like I've heard most of them before. Like a lot of people like the "Her Body, Her Choice" chant, and like "This is what democracy looks like," and there's a lot of a lot of similar ones, but. I mean, they're very good. They're good chants, I guess.
Were you able to hear any of the speakers at the rally?
No, they didn't have them on where we were standing. They didn't have them on the microphones that were on the lawn. They were on the actual mall itself, so we couldn't hear any of that. But it's okay.
So you were at the mall.
Yes.
And then did you march?
Yes.
And tell me about your route.
I forget exactly the name of the streets, but it's the one we went past Trump Hotel and towards the White House, and then right when like you branch off left to there's like the main protest ended, and then some people went all the way to the White House, and we decided that we didn't necessarily need to go down that way because we'd done the whole march route and stayed at the mall pretty much all day, and it was getting late, and so. It was also much more crowded because it's more of a bottleneck. That more like bottlenecks a lot of people. So we felt like we didn't need to go like all the way to the front gate of the White House. And I feel like that's where a lot of people ended too.
Was anything in particular going on around the Trump Hotel?
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of people voicing their opinions. And then I remember there's one lady who walked out of the Trump Hotel in like a white fur coat and like looked around and was like, "What the hell is going on?" And then just like walked back inside. Yeah, it was interesting. I mean, they had a humongous security, law enforcement presence at the Trump Hotel. As naturally, like I understand it's a very polarizing landmark in DC, especially now.
So, when you were at the march, you had the impressions that you had because you were physically there. After the march, how did you feel about the media coverage versus what you had experienced?
I didn't get a chance to look at a lot of the immediate media coverage because we went to sleep and we had to get up and drive all the way back the next day, and then we had to do a lot of homework that we missed because we have a lot of it with Georgia Tech. But in the surrounding days, I mean, as is pretty much anything, there's certain channels who covered it different news outlets covered it different ways. So I don't know. I can't really speak on the media coverage as well as I probably should, but I mean,
it sounds like you didn't see it. So
yeah, no. I mean, I saw a little bit of it, but not a lot. No, I didn't. I mean, like I saw like some news outlets estimated different size crowds and whatever, but I didn't really watch a lot of the immediate media coverage of it. I don't know, I didn't really feel the need to because I was there. So like I had my own opinions about what happened, and I can form my own opinions about it. And I didn't really need to see media coverage to do that.
So how did you feel after the march? Did you feel like your purpose was fulfilled, showing up and participating?
Yes, I do. I feel like I did what I had in mind to accomplish by attending the march.
And since the march, what have you done, if anything, to maintain your political activity, or are you involved in anything political?
Not a ton. I attended one of the rallies. It was back when the original travel ban on immigrants from certain countries came out.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a small rally at Georgia Tech. I attended that. I was slightly late because I had class, but and then one of my friends participated in the march to the Capitol against HB 51, or is it 351 or 51? I think. And so I helped her pass out flyers to get attention for her march, but I had I didn't go on that. No, I haven't been like extremely politically active after that, but I've done a few things. Yeah.
So do you feel like the momentum from that event will continue to inspire you?
Definitely, I do. I feel like I'll be able to look back and be like, hey, look, like I attended this. I was able to do this. Like, it's not that hard to call up a representative, or it's not that hard to attend like a smaller rally. So yeah, no, I definitely feel like it will. I mean, it's hard as a college student, obviously, to attend a lot of events and be extremely active when you have a lot of responsibilities. But yeah, I feel like it definitely will help me be more politically active in the future.
What do you hope will happen around the current situation in this country?
You know, I don't know. I hope. I don't know. I don't want to hope for anything drastic. I hope that, like, I don't know. I hope that we can just like get through the next 4 years with minimal damage. Well, no, next 2 years until there's congressional elections, and then I hope that there'll be a lot more. By that time, there'll be a lot more Democratic influence in Congress, and I feel like I don't want anything drastic to happen. I feel like we need to do damage control as much as possible for the next 4 years, and then like try and get ourselves back on track.
It sounds like you regretted that you weren't more active leading up to the election,
Mm-hmm.
and that you are kind of making a promise to yourself that you'll be more involved next time.
Yeah, definitely. I want to be active in the next congressional or presidential election.
Did anything surprise you about your experience at the march, either like something you saw or maybe an emotion that you felt?
I think it was really interesting because me and my friend, one of my friends, Anne Marie, who went and walked around the monuments that night after everyone had gone home, because like, we went to DC for the march, obviously, but while you're in DC, like you might as well like go and see some of the things. Like it's not like you're there every day. So we decided to just walk around to a lot of the monuments, and there wasn't very many people out at all. A lot of people had gone in, and it was just really interesting to see like the previous march route and where people had been gathered all day, and you could see just like piles and piles of signs everywhere. And it was really interesting. It was just cool to see like the aftermath of the march, and like it was interesting, cool, because you got a good look at a lot of people's signs that were left flying around. So you're like, oh, I can read this. I can read this one. That was very interesting. Yeah, it was kind of a somber mood, because it was kind of more of like a rainy night. It was kind of cold and misty out, so it was kind of surreal to see like the evidence that there'd been hundreds of thousands of people here, but then to see none of those people at all.
That sounds really interesting. Did you take any pictures?
I brought my GoPro to take pictures and video of the march, and I accidentally left it on in my camera bag, and it died. And so I have a few phone pictures, and then Anne-Marie brought her really nice, she has a nice Nikon camera, and she lent it to one of her friends, and one of her friends set it down, and it got stolen. And she lost most of her pictures, pretty much all of them.
Terrible.
Yeah, her friend set it down at a monument, and someone picked it up.
That's a real bummer.
Yeah, it's a real shame. They had a lot of really, really nice pictures.
I was hoping you were going to say you took pictures with a really good camera in the fog and mist of these piles of signs, and you would be interested in donating that to the archive. That would be an interesting photo to have.
I have a nice camera, and I didn't bring it because I was like, this is very bulky. I don't want to pack this.
Right, and carry it all day.
But ultimately, I really should have. That's definitely one of the things that I regret, is that I didn't get enough pictures.
So that image that was very powerful, you described it felt somber.
It was very somber. It was more of like you could still feel like how many people were here, just because of like just the sheer numbers of signs and like water bottles and stuff that was like overflowing in like the trash and recycling bins.
So that it was a significant event.
Yeah, you could definitely tell that it was a significant event. And it was interesting, especially next to a lot of the monuments which we associate with significant events throughout our history. So like there's tons of signs piled up next to the Washington Monument, and just like on the walk through the park where the Vietnam Memorial is and the Korean War Memorial is. So it was interesting, like, to associate this event with landmarks that mark important events throughout history.
You mentioned the Vietnam Memorial. I mean, the power of that is in the cumulative effect of each name.
Yeah.
And so you've got these piles of signs, each of them, and water bottles, each of them representing a person.
Yeah.
So that looks like trash and recycling, and this is engraved in marble, but they're really telling a story about individual Americans.
Mm-hmm.
That's a really powerful image.
Yeah, it was a very interesting thing to see. I think that I'm not gonna say that was like my favorite part, because I enjoyed the whole experience, or my most memorable part, but that was definitely like something that really stood out.
It's a wonderful, wonderful image.
Thanks.
How have you felt about how things have been going in this country since the march?
I feel like there's certain things have gone better than I expected, and certain things have gone worse than I expected. I feel like it's interesting that it's an interesting way to see how checks and balances work in the government. And something that I've noticed and talked about with my friends and family is how a lot of times people write off the judicial branch as really participate, like having that much say in the checks and balances system. But it seems as now, like more than ever, that like the judicial branch has stepped up and really done their part to balance the power of the executive and legislative branches. When I find that really interesting. I never thought that, like, you could say that the judicial branch would have such an important role in mitigating the fallout from Trump's presidency.
The Constitution really at work.
Yeah, it's a really interesting way that we can see the Constitution at work, even when one party dominates the legislature and the executive branch, that we still have checks and balances put in place that help, at least even if they don't fix the problem entirely, they help give people a better shot at fair treatment.
So you said you feel like I heard you say there been some things that are not as bad as you thought they would be, and some things that are. What are some of the things that are not as bad as you thought they'd be?
Let's see. I feel like even though the rhetoric of our current administration is not, it's intended, I feel like some of it's intended, or not even, I feel like it's intended to hurt people, but I feel like people have really stepped up and said like, hey, like we don't hate you just because you're a member of the LGBT community. Like, we support you. We're not gonna, I don't know, like, I don't know. It's hard to say, like, what could have been worse, what could have been better. But I feel like, I don't know, like our country hasn't completely fallen apart yet. So I feel like we still have that. But yeah. It's hard to think of like concrete examples on the spot, but
it sounds like a little bit of what you're going for is the fact that there have been a lot of counter voices to the negativity,
there's
and
been a lot of
that
people,
gives you hope.
Yeah, that definitely gives me hope that we can make it through the next 4 years with minimal, not necessarily minimal damage to the institutions, which a lot of us hold dear, but that we'll be able to rebuild and regroup as a country and look back and be like, wow, I can't believe that happened. I'm glad that's over.
If somebody asked you if they should go to a march like the Women's March in D.C., what would you tell them?
Absolutely. I think that it's even if they don't agree with everything that's being said there, which, I mean, naturally, like, not everyone's going to agree with everything that people are marching for, but even if you just agree with one thing, like, go and voice your opinion on that one thing and show that even that it's not just students. Even if it wasn't a student, like, it's like a lot of protests and marches are organized around the student body of the United States. That's always been a major force for change. But I feel like even if you work a blue collar job and you agree with certain things, or you lean more politically right, if you disagree with something about that our current administration is doing, you should go voice your opinion, because it's important, and it's important for the democratic process, is that those in power see that their constituents have a problem with what they're doing, or that they agree with what they're doing.
Well said.
Oh, thank you.
So is there anything about your experience at the march that you haven't talked about, that I've failed to ask you about, that you want to talk about, that seems important?
Let me think for a second. I think you covered it really well. I mean, if you have any other questions, or if you've thought of any other questions, I would love to hear.
That was sort of my wind-up, was what have we not talked about that was important to you?
I think it was interesting to see the different people that were there. Like, there was mothers, fathers, students, little children. People brought their dogs. I think it was, and I think that that's one of the main reasons that it stayed peaceful, is that there was such a wide variety of people there, and people who all had different interests and different reasons for coming. And so I feel like that really helped keep the march on track and accomplish what it was meant to do, rather is to just fall towards voicing one specific issue.
Some people have said that that was a weakness of the march, that the issues were so diverse, and that would lead to, a lack of momentum following up. But from what you're saying, it sounds like that was part of what was powerful about
I
it for you.
think that that's what made it powerful, and that's what made it the peaceful march and demonstration that it was.
Interesting. Well, thank you, Nolan.
Oh, you're
I
welcome.
appreciate you taking the time.
You're welcome.
It's one thing to say you'll do this, it's another to really show up.